This year represents a milestone for the American Chamber in celebrating 50 years of supporting US investment in Ireland. Ireland has always enjoyed the strongest of relationships with the United States, and nowhere is this more evident than in the economic relationship that exists between our two countries. When the American Chamber was launched on the 10th of January 1961, the US ambassador at the time, Mr. Scott McLeod, said that US companies desiring to do business abroad are bound to take another look at Ireland, and that he had every confidence that great progress could be made. Well, 50 years on, the latest figures from the Department of Commerce confirm that US companies have invested more than $165 billion in Ireland. That is more than the combined investment that US companies have made in Brazil, Russia, India and China. The American Chamber of Commerce represents over 600 US companies who directly employ over 100,000 people, support tens of thousands of jobs in Irish industry, and export in excess of 90 billion of goods and services around the globe each year. Indeed, US companies now account for 20% of Ireland's total economic output. Many of the 600 companies here have European and even worldwide mandates, representing the most modern and vibrant element of the Irish economy.
By the middle 50s, we had the most horrific immigration out of this country.
The Irish government in late 50s decided that it was time to end protectionism, it was time to open up to free trade, it was time to make Ireland a competitive place to do business in.
The only future for a small country like Ireland is to open itself to the outside world and exploit the world that's on its doorstep.
US companies were coming to Ireland to set up manufacturing companies on the back of export sales relief. So Citi followed the customers into most countries, but especially into Ireland.
Bank of America first established in Ireland in 1968. Initially we came here to support our US clients, who were amongst the first wave of US companies to establish in Ireland.
IBM, of course, always been here. I saw my first computer in the IBM premises in Burlington Road in about 1969.
I think the role of the American Chamber of Commerce in those days was quite different, being a sort of a reliable port of call for incoming companies and at the same time wanting US investment to succeed here. The European community said, look, you've got a tax regime that's explicitly favouring exports. You can't do that. Ireland uses its brains, basically, to say, well, we're ending discrimination in favour of exports, but we're introducing an across-the-board 10% corporate tax for manufacturing.
HP has been here since 1975. The reasons for us coming here were a very pro-business environment from a government standpoint, and obviously you have the highly educated workforce. We've been involved with the American Chamber of Commerce actually since the very early stages.
Bob Chalker was the executive director, I remember that, of the American Chamber back in the 80s. Very organised man, very disciplined man, everything worked like clockwork. And of course his previous experience as American diplomat, I think, probably increased the linkage between business and government very well as well.
But he was a great character. He was represented by two things: always wearing a bow tie and a somewhat elderly blue Mercedes.
In 1982, we persuaded IBM to develop an IBM software development centre within the corporation as a whole. And that was the first strategic investment by IBM as distinct from just looking at it as an Irish market. In 1985, in the middle of the last recession in Ireland, Microsoft were approved by us. Very, very few people at that time had the faintest notion of what Microsoft was or could be, because it was all so new.
We started in 1985 as a manufacturing facility. We now have 1,200 people, so a real transformation in the types of roles that we have here. They picked Ireland for a number of reasons. Top on the list was the skills that we had here in Ireland. The ease of doing business, it was an English language country, it was a gateway into Europe. The government were always very proactive in trying to support new industries who wanted to invest in Ireland.
I was with the American Chamber from the mid-90s to the late 90s. The American Chamber had enormous potential that was not being utilised. And when Bob was retiring, they decided to do a whole strategic review. What developed particularly at that time was to articulate the voice of the American companies operating in Ireland.
In a group of very influential companies, the biggest and best companies in the world, working together on best practices on policy, and presenting that in a collective way is so much more powerful than doing it individually.
One of the major things to do in that period was to develop a strong board. So you did have people like Bernard Collins from Boston Scientific coming on board, Frank McCabe of Intel, Aidan Brady of Citicorp. These were representing major operations in Ireland.
The American Chamber have been very focused on trying to take the area of education and seeing where are the specific skills that we may have gaps in. And in the technology industry, that tends to be around the mathematics.
There were many occasions when we led delegations in to speak with, on a one-to-one basis, with the Minister for Education at that time. The membership grew within the Chamber because people realised that here was an organisation that was actually listening to their concerns.
The American chambers are very, very strong right throughout the world, in fact arguably the strongest in the world, and that's why corporations rely on the independent advice that they get from the American Chamber.
Well, I first became involved with the Chamber around about the year 2000, and it's proved a very, very useful place for us to meet other companies with whom we'd normally compete. It's become one of the primary representative bodies that IBM actually has in Ireland.
I personally think the American Chamber of Commerce has done an absolutely fantastic job as the representatives of American industry in Ireland.
So Google, we're in Dublin for about 7 years. Originally came here because we felt it would be a tremendous place to hire young European talent. And by golly, we've surpassed our expectations.
PayPal started out in 2003 with 25 people. We're now at 1,300 people.
The ability to really tap into talent and people who speak multiple languages was critical for us. The support that you find here is very unique.
The danger about foreign investment, particularly if you succeed, is complacency. People assume, because it's worked in the past, that you don't have to keep at it. As Ireland became more established, that's where the danger of complacency came in, and that's where the importance of an independent chamber that can speak out and say to a government, look, you're actually taking the eye off the ball here, you're losing competitiveness, etc.
There were three people who really had a major influence on the Chamber in its 50 years. Clearly the first one was Ken Whitaker. He set the framework for the basis for the Americans to come here. The second was clearly Bob Chalker. The third person is Joanne, and she made it more of an entity.
For those of us who run companies in Ireland, FDI companies, it's easy to do with somebody like Joanne who thinks the way we do, speaks our language, understands our issues, and is very focused in driving those issues.
I've known American Chamber and Joanne for some time, a very sort of strong group of partners and a very strong network of people that will help us get done what we need to get done here.
Look at the role they played in the Lisbon referendum and what they did in terms of pointing out to the average Irish citizen how important that a yes vote was.
While the national agenda is probably the most important, there are from time to time regional issues as well which are important, so we can give a local voice.
And within the various regions you also got clusters of industry. So if you look at areas like Galway, you've got the medtech, Cork would be associated generally with the pharma. Dublin, you've got the large financial services. The Northwest, again, we've got a range of financial services type companies, manufacturing.
The southeastern region at the moment has in the order of 65 multinational companies. It does have a cluster of medical device and pharmaceutical business. My role would be to get the collective voice of the southeast.
The west of Ireland is an extremely attractive location for US companies seeking to invest. There are around 70 US companies located in the western region with particularly vibrant sectors in ICT and medical technologies. This provides valuable employment for over 14,000 people directly throughout the counties of Galway, Mayo and Roscommon.
It's been a great experience being the president of the Chamber for 2010 during a time of great changes, difficulties here in Ireland. And the Chamber is right up there in front making sure we're influencing the key policy makers.
Despite the turbulent economic times we're in, it's interesting that particularly the last 9 months we've had the strongest flow of foreign direct investment that we've had for maybe 5 or 6 years.
There's no doubt that the multinational industry here is going to be the most important part of our economy. The Chamber of Commerce is going to play a huge part in turning around that perception deficit and that confidence that we need to all get back.
My attitude is we got to communicate better, we got to make sure we have the media behind us, but we have to try and plug every opportunity we have as an organisation to make people see that it's not all doom and gloom, because you know what, it's not.
The latest figures from the Department of Commerce in Washington confirmed that US investment in Ireland now exceeds $165 billion. We have over 600 US companies spanning multiple sectors in Ireland exporting in excess of €90 billion each year into the European market and beyond. Ireland remains a forward-looking and vibrant international business hub.
The American Chamber is very proud of the contribution that US companies have made to Ireland's economic development over the last 5 decades. US companies and the American Chamber have a huge amount to contribute in coming years. Global foreign direct investment is predicted to grow by 30% by 2012. And given the magnificent base of US companies we have here, this represents significant opportunities for future investment. Investment trends show that 70% of all of the new investment that came into Ireland in the last 5 years has come from the existing base of companies. So the retention of these companies here in Ireland is critical to Ireland's future economic success. We are very well positioned to win new investment into the future, as long as we ensure that our taxation policies remain competitive, that we continue to have a strong and flexible talent pool, that the business environment remains flexible, and that our costs continue to come down in line with our European counterparts. And for our part, the American Chamber of Commerce is committed to working with our member companies around the country, policymakers and industry partners to ensure that we can retain and grow US investment in Ireland for many more years to come.